Hello and welcome to another episode of Just Onside. I'm your host for today, Uwais Ahmed. Normally, I wouldn't be doing the hosting duties, but today it felt fitting that I should be. And I'm joined, as always, by our resident Ayub Patel. He'll be the man smiling throughout the podcast, as you can see, wearing his Leeds United yellow, loud and proud. Ayub, how are you, mate?
I'm in great spirits. I'm surprised you didn't introduce Ayub Patel, Leeds United Premier League club supporter.
Well, you know what's really funny? I was watching one of your famous comments about Luton Town literally a couple of days ago with Dennis, who I'd spent a few days with. And we watched your famous commentary about Luton Town. If you remember, you spoke about how you've got Leeds United, world renowned Leeds United, a huge football club. They used to be, as you said at that time, when you spoke about how Luton Town was sightseeing. But you are officially a Premier League club. Ayub, we're going to get into it very quickly. But just first hand, Ayub, how are you feeling? You must be still feeling a great deal of euphoria.
Unbelievable. It's a strange one. I was speaking to somebody in the office today about how I felt. Now, we got promoted 3 years ago, 4 years ago in COVID. And that feeling, uh, it's not quite the same feeling. It's a strange one because, in a sense, when we went up in 2020, that was after 16 years. We didn't have the best side in that league. So it was it was an unbelievable feeling. Albeit it was COVID, but it was just the most incredible feeling because I must confess, I never thought that we'd get into the Premier League because every single year we were finishing sort of 14, 15, 14, 15. And then Bielsa came, the great Bielsa, transformed that football club. We didn't really invest heavily in great players. These were the players, I mean, the players that got us up were players that were finishing 14,
Mm.
15. So the feeling was incredible. I mean, I don't think ever that feeling is ever going to be surpassed. I mean, yesterday was just incredible. But it was almost as if this is, as Roy Keane would say, well, that's your job to go up. So in a sense, it was a strange feeling that, yes, job done. This is what my expectations were. Huge disappointment last year. This year, we've done what we were expected to do. So in a sense, it was more relief than elation. In 2020, it was elation. It was just a feeling that I cannot describe. But this was more just, yes, this was what we were expected to do. A huge sense of relief. But I am feeling absolutely delighted that we're back in the big time. So to answer your question, I'm delighted, but it's what we should. It's as going back to Roy Keane. It's what we were expected to do.
Yeah, you say that, Ayub. I mean, you're right. I mean, at the start of the season, Leeds United were well placed. I mean, you lost some key players, though. You, I think we'll get into that shortly. Heading into the season, you lost some big players, Somerville, Sinistera, just to name a few. And I think at that time, I mean, you've still got a couple of good loan players and bought well and what have you. You're still well positioned. You get the benefit of the parachute payments. You've got a coach who, for all of his faults, has taken teams up from the championship. That is
Mm.
something that he has done previously on more than one occasion. Um, I think the only thing I would say, you, but I just want to get your thoughts on it, is as much as you were expected to do it, there was that kind of wobble, wasn't there, about
Mm.
a month or so ago when it looked perhaps like if that wobble had continued, you would have found yourself in Sheffield United's shoes. But the team arrested the slide pretty quickly, and you must be incredibly proud because that's you spoke about relief, but that's maybe perhaps where the elation has come from. That perhaps for once Leeds United proved you wrong to some extent and showed a bit of
Yeah, yeah,
character and a
yeah,
bit of
yeah, yeah.
mentality down the stretch when the pressure is at its highest. You must be incredibly proud.
Yeah, for that, yeah. I mean, you've pointed to something which really it surprised me. I must confess because I've always questioned the mentality of this team, and the wobble, in a sense, sort of almost demonstrated the mental fragility that this team has. Now, it was a wonderful turnaround. Uh, I mean, I'd temper it by saying, apart from yesterday's emphatic win,
Mm.
the three victories we had were by the odd goal, which is always, I mean, it shows a certain nil at their place, which is always a tough thing to do. We beat Preston 2-1. We beat a very poor Preston 2-1. And then we beat Oxford quite comfortably, but it was still 1-0. So in a sense, it's on another day. It could have turned very ugly by sort of last minute equalizers or maybe a long throw or a set piece. So it weren't emphatic. I think the key for me was the Sheffield United implosion, the three
Mm,
game defeat. I think that is where, if you ask me where what was the difference, it was that. Because if you add, let's say, 7 points to Sheffield United, it's a completely different scenario. And maybe I suppose the pressure would have been too much. I think sometimes what helps is one of your competitors faltering. And I think Sheffield United just faltered at the right time for us. And we perhaps capitalised on that. But I will give credit to the players, and I will give credit begrudgingly to Daniel Farke.
yeah, I mean, look, we'll get on to Daniel Farkas shortly. You spoke about the Sheffield United implosion. Implosion is perhaps the right word. I don't disagree with you. I think, was it a Plymouth game? Or you correct me if I'm wrong, where they were winning 1-0 and it got turned
Yeah.
around 2-1. I think that was the one where I thought, wow, that's one of those because obviously Plymouth, and I think I'm not sure what their result was yesterday, but I saw a statistic where all the bottom four teams were winning at some point. I don't know if that
Yeah,
stayed.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that stayed true till the end. So Plymouth obviously fighting for their lives, but I think they were rooted bottom at that time when they played Sheffield United. So the fact they turned that game around, I think in the not in the dying embers, but it was in the last 15 minutes, if I remember correctly. And I believe they beat Sheffield United, didn't they? And that's when I thought, oh,
Mm,
that's a biggie. That's really gonna kill them off in terms of morale. I mean, that you can imagine what the dressing room would have been like. But back to Leeds United. I mean, we'll get to the bigger picture in terms of what that means for yourself, for you, and the club moving forward. You're back in the big time, but just about the season in and of itself, how would you recap the season? You're right in terms of expected to go. You're probably the bookies' favourites, and look, you hopefully be looking to win the league. I think that's important as well. But how do you see the season? It must be, like I said, a huge relief. Must be just feeling
mm.
a lot more calm about the coming games.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's more relief. I mean, as I said, and it's mission accomplished. I mean, that was the objective, albeit it's taken 44 games. So
You get
in terms of
46. You get 46.
yeah, but in terms of KPI, Daniel Farke has done what he was supposed to have done. In my opinion, he should have done this last year. But credit to Daniel Farke. It's the test. Obviously, is going to be next season because, in a sense, this is really what the expectation were, and it he did say 3 or 4 weeks ago, or at least 3 or 4 games ago, that he was 100% convinced that we will go up. Now, I don't know whether that was just bravado, that was bluster, but it's
Mm-mm.
borne out to be true. We have gone up. We've done what we needed to do. He's obviously instilled a certain toughness in the players. Now, you have to give him credit. I mean, whether I like it or not, there has to be some credit given to the manager. Uh, so I'm relieved, mightily relieved. It means that I can enjoy the next 2 games. Now, certainly for me, I mean, I'm a man of high standards when it comes to Leeds United Football Club. So what I want is 2 victories and 100 points, and to be promoted as champions.
Yeah, that would be quite nice, wouldn't it? I mean, there is something to be said about breaking that points threshold of 100. That would be quite nice. I mean, but you're right. You're back in the big time now. Just a little bit of the larger picture, you. I've known you obviously for a number of years now, and if anything, you've kind of piqued my curiosity about how football often is seen just about, in a sense, the big teams, the big trophies. And we look, listen, these are the glamour headlines. That's what sells. You've religiously reminded me year in, year out, and multiple times on this podcast, if not even less, just in the last one that we shot, which is the championship is where it's at in terms of entertainment, in terms of
Mm,
drama, and all the rest of it. But I think in terms of your journey, Leeds United Football Club, I know what it means to you. I don't know any other football supporting fan that is about us. Well, fan, short for fanatic, and I think
mm,
fitting for yourself in terms of what Leeds United Football Club means to you. We've touched on it previously. I know this isn't just something that you'll think, "Oh, great result, we're promoted next year, can't wait." You will wear this personally, won't you, for a good while heading into that first game of the season. Your days will be brightened up, each and every single one of them, knowing that Leeds United will be playing Premier League football next year. Just summarize for us what it means for you, obviously as a person that your beloved Leeds United will be playing all of the big boys next year. Twice and getting thrashed as well, might I remind you? But yes,
Yeah, I mean,
that's one for another day.
yeah, I mean that's the reality. What it is because I mean it is the holy grail. It's Premier League is where you want to be, but then do you just want to be a number? Do you just want to be an also ran? And this is where maybe I'd love to be involved in Leeds United Football Club because this to me would be it's the ultimate test because what history has shown us, especially recent history, all three teams that go up come back down. So it's a huge challenge. Now you've got to bear in mind, I for the last 2 years I've been used to Leeds United winning games of football, winning a large percentage of games of football. Now next year it's going to be completely different. But what I want, one team, which is all it's trying to do is just Premier League. For the first season, absolutely yes. I think the expectation is to finish, or at least be better than three teams in that league. So I will be more than happy if we just finish above the relegation, because in a sense that's the KPI, that's the objective. But that therein lies the problem. How do you do that? I mean, we talked about it, or I talked about Wolves being the fourth worst team in the league. Now, at the moment, if we played Wolves now, they'd absolutely batter us off the park. There's no question. If Wolves were in the Championship, I'd be expecting them to win 40 games. That's the gulf between the Championship and the bottom end of the Premiership. So I'm thinking now, right, the first season is just staying in the league. What do you do? How do you navigate this very, very difficult league and the standard that's in this league? So straight away for me, I'd be looking at, right, you've got to be ruthless. You have to be ruthless. You have to get rid of players that you just know will not cut it in the Premier League. Now, is this what this club has? Now, you know my thoughts on Daniel Farke. Now, he's proven twice that he's not capable of managing in this league. Now, I think the way that the last few games have transpired, it will be impossible to get rid of Daniel Farke. So he'll certainly be there at the start of the season. I've got a feeling I'm sort of thinking that he'll be sacked by Christmas. Absolutely, because I don't think he has the credentials. I don't think he has the skill set. I don't think he has the coaching acumen to cope with the complexities and the difficulties in the Premier League. So it's I've got a sense of realism as well. So I'm excited. I can't wait to lock horns with the likes of the Arsenal, Liverpool. Hopefully we can compete with Manchester United. So I'm hoping there are certain sides that we can probably at least compete with. But what I want to see is this football club take it seriously. This football club look at, right, what we want to do is buck the trend. We want to do something which gives us a real fighting chance of staying in the league. Recruitment's going to be absolutely crucial, but then it's not just about signing players, it's who you sign. I mean, my opinion is you sign players that have got the experience. I mean, I was looking at who would I try and look to sign. The first signing I would make is John McGinn, Aston Villa, or at least try and see if we can get John McGinn. That's the type of character that I will be looking at, because my first objective is who is going to keep us in this league. So that's the way that I will be going about the business. Forget all of these superstars from Europe. Let's look at sort of players who've got the right aptitude, the ability, because at the end of the day, John McGinn is not a mug, but he's got the right attributes. He's not a player that sort of he's going to grab the headlines, but he's the sort of player that when the going gets tough, he'll be getting stuck in and he'll give you a fighting chance of staying in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering how long it would take before the deluded fan came out in you. It took all of about 12 minutes, which, to be fair for Leeds, is quite good going actually. I mean, you got John McGinn just the other week scoring Champions League quarter-final goals, past Paris Saint-Germain against one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and here's Ayub suggesting that Leeds United should shell out a fortune just to pick up John McGinn. I hear you. I mean, I know what you're saying. That kind of workman-like central midfielder who gives it plenty in terms of just his kind of commitment to the cause.
Mm,
He's a good player. He's a top player. I think you may have to set your sights a bit lower than that, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, look, in terms of Leeds, Ayub, you mentioned obviously back into the big time. I mean, you want the team to make a bit of a fist of it. Speaking about these owners, you've obviously followed them quite closely, an ambitious group. How do you think they will approach it? I'm with you in agreement with the manager. I think he starts the season. I'm also in agreement with you that I don't think this ownership group will show any type of loyalty or anything like that. They want to stay up, simple as. So if it is going really belly up, and you see that it's not just the Leeds United thing. It's not a Daniel Farke thing, Ayub. I'm sure you'll agree.
mm,
It's actually if you look at generally look at Russell Martin. He came up with Southampton, played
mm.
a certain type of way, very
Yeah,
stubborn, and he was fired. Obviously, even his replacement was fired in the end as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So if you're going to struggle at the bottom, it's rare, let's say, that the club just literally just sticks with you through thick and thin, accepting
Mm.
their fate from an early stage. How do you think they will approach it? Do you expect them to be quite ambitious in the summer, or do you think they'll be quite cautious and just try and be very shrewd, or do you think they'll do a real kind of aggressive approach to really pick up, as you mentioned, Premier League talent?
What was worrying was there was an interview done yesterday with Daniel Fark. This was sort of once promotion was secure. So everybody was in decent spirits, good spirits. Whether he'd had a couple of drinks, I don't know whether that loosened his tongue
Mm,
or not. But he did say that wanted to invest or he wanted to bring in players in January, but it was decided that they were not going to agree to that. Now, obviously, they is the owners of this football club, and that worried me because if you are absolutely committed to going up, you leave no stone unturned. Now, I think we did need sort of one or two players in January. The fact that the 49ers probably poo-pooed that idea worries me because it could have gone wrong. I mean, as I said, if Sheffield United had not lost those points, it could be a completely different story, and we'd still be in the championship. So that sort of rings alarm bells for me. That if they were absolutely committed, they would have supported Daniel Farke, or at least even if Daniel Farke had said no, they should have been proactive and said, look, we don't want to leave anything to chance. Let's add to the squad so we make sure that when the final knock-ins, there's no issues. We've got players, and thankfully we had enough. I mean, I always thought our squad was good enough, even in January. The additions were just to make sure that you don't leave nothing to chance. Plus also he didn't rotate his squad, so maybe the club, the owners might have thought, well, look, there's no point asking for players when you keep players on the bench already that what we have. So I'm not privy to obviously what the conversations were, but that's the only thing that worries me. So which then makes me think if that's their position in January, are they going to take a similar position where they might turn around and say, well, look, we don't want to go crazy and just spend 150 million on players when there's a high probability that we'd be struggling. So I don't know. I don't know what their mindset is. I think the first season really should just be about making sure that you stay in the league, but then you have a mindset of recruiting. And that's why I said John McGinn. I know he's obviously he's a integral part of Aston Villa, but he's a player in his 30s. What I would almost sort of say, well, give him a 3-year contract. I'm not sure what his contract length is at Aston Villa, but Aston Villa, I have no doubt, will be investing in players next season. Uh, is he going to be surplus to requirements, or is he going to have less game time? If he comes to Leeds, it's completely a different ball game. You can sell the club to him. He knows Leeds United Football Club. This is not a small club. This is a club that has huge pedigree. I'd go as far as saying that we perhaps have more status in the history of the game than Aston Villa. We've got 40,000 on hearing the 40,000 come every single week. So there is enough to entice him. Uh, so I would be looking at that caliber of player, players that have got experience in the Premier League. So time will tell as to how 49ers approach it. But if they don't use that uh, approach, then we're doomed. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you spoke about January. You're much closer to it than I am. I think sometimes it can come down to different approaches. The 49ers group were proven right, weren't they, in the end? Now, you might argue that that was because of external reasons, and that's fine. We can debate that till the cows come home. But they might have seen the view that, look, we're not a million miles away. We're going to be fine. Yes, there'll be the inevitable wobble, but they probably came to the conclusion that we're one of the two best teams in the league. And I guess the worry shouldn't be so much that they weren't willing to invest to your point, seal the deal or definitively make sure that you were going to be able to get over the line. Perhaps the worry is that they might think, well, we were proven right in our judgment the first time, which
Mm,
means that it kind of emboldens their approach heading into the second season. But I think this is obviously we're just hypothesizing here. I guess the interesting approach will be moving forward whether or not the other aspect they might have looked at is well, if we get players in now and we go up, that's another squad role that we've got to fit in terms of our replacement. So we want to go aggressive in the summer when we do get to the
mm,
Premier League. But if we fill the squad with another couple of players, let's say that's another couple of roles that we may have to open up again in the
mm,
summer. So there might have been good reasons, perhaps not for
mm.
doing it as well. Gives them perhaps an open pathway now just to build a squad as they want. It'll be very interesting to see. I think Leeds do have a certain pull. I don't disagree with you. I think they'll be able to pay a certain amount of wages. I think if they
Mm.
are smart and pick up some players where, to your point, they might just be not necessarily coming to the end of their careers. John McGinn's far from that. It's a decent example, but still picking up players who are still athletic, young
Yeah.
enough, and you might entice them with an extra year or a little bit of extra money to see if they can stand it, let's say, and keep Leeds up. I think you still may have to set your sights a little lower. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what the approach will be. Do they go abroad for a lot of the talent, let's say, and bring in a lot of unknown, unproven talent? I know that probably
I
won't
hope
be.
they don't. I hope they don't.
Yeah, or do they go a little bit more experience? Where do you stand with the manager? You've been very critical of him throughout the season, very, very critical. You've not been shy at all to give him both barrels after every defeat or even sometimes narrow win, which is
Mm.
surprising to me. But there was an interesting article written on Sky Sports. I don't know if you've read it on Daniel Farker, just about what he's brought to the party. It was one paragraph long. No, I'm only joking. But I mean, in the end, you've got to be pleased for the man. He's guided you to championship, obviously in terms of promotion. And in the end, you've got to say, look, he's done his job. Fine, great
Mm.
work. I guess you'll be seeing how he fares this time round in the Premier League. I guess.
Yeah, I'll give him credit because last season must have been a huge disappointment. So, and we lost Chris Somerville, we lost Jorginho Rutter, we lost young Archie Gray. So, I mean, that was the key, the kingpins. These were instrumental players. So the recruitment was pretty good. So I think that element was really good. I think what he's done, he's obviously he accepted the fate. If you don't go up, you're going to lose your best players, and which we did. We lost uh, uh, with all intents. Cree Somerville and Rutter were our gun players. They were the ones who won us games. So we lost two key cogs. Young Archie Gray was just magnificent.
Archie
He's
Gray.
proven, yeah. He's proven at Spurs. He's been an absolute revelation. And just on Archie Gray, his brother made his debut yesterday
Mm,
at age 16, Harry Gray, and he's a fantastic prospect. So I think I've got to give him credit that he's coped with losses of key men. We've recruited well. Uh, we had a solid base, but we've recruited well. We've got
mm.
into the loan market pretty well. I mean, Solomon, he divided opinion for maybe non-footballing reasons when he came, but in terms of his football, I've got to say that he's delivered. I mean, he had a
Mm.
little quiet spell,
Yeah.
but over the last few weeks, he's delivered, and that's what you expect from these loan signings from Premier
Mm,
League clubs.
mm.
Rothwell as well has been really good. I mean, it was. He was frozen out a little bit at the start. We brought him in, but he didn't get much game time. And then there
Mm,
was an injury to Ampadu, which forced Fark's hand, which meant that he had to play.
mm, mm.
And he was outstanding. He's been injured the last few weeks, but he's been outstanding. So we've had Fark, who's bought well. Now, my criticism of Fark is his in-game management, which is, in my opinion, as poor as any coach. Uh, it's quite formulaic. He makes subs around 70 minutes. He doesn't rotate the squad. Tactically, again, it's sometimes difficult to see what his tactic is, apart from relying on good players to have a moment of magic. Go,
I just want to intervene there. Listen, I'm not playing devil's advocate here. And by the way, I think I misspoke earlier when I mentioned Sinister. I think you lost him when you got relegated. I meant Archie Gray and Rutter actually. Obviously Rutter to Brighton as well. But I don't want to play devil's advocate, are you? But let me position it to you like this: do you think his approach is one where he's just not capable in terms of this kind of in-game management, or do you think it's more a case of showing his best players that look, I believe in you. So even when you're going through a wobble, you're the one's going to dig us out of this. And there is some long-term kind of payback, isn't there? Because players, as much as they sometimes need help, that's the one thing you should be able to help them in situations where you can tell they're better off just to be moved out of the team for a couple of
yeah,
games just to give them a rest. I'm with you on that, but there is some, I'm sure you agree, some managerial kind of credibility and credence to the theory that sometimes sticking with your best players through the tough times just gives them that little bit more belief, let's say, that, oh, manager's not just going to take us off at the first sign of trouble or bench us or drop us. You said yourself with the goalkeeper, you waited till the nth degree to finally move on
yeah,
from him. And I think that was just when it was getting to the business end and maybe his confidence was absolutely shot.
yeah.
But there is some credence, isn't there, you where he's showing faith to say to the guys, well, okay, you've got us into this trouble, let's say in a couple of games, but I believe in you. You're good. You are good players. You've won us a lot of games in this league, and in some ways, over the last month, that's been proven to be the case, hasn't it? I mean, they've really rewarded him with a lot of tough fought victories and obviously a flying performance yesterday. What do you say to that pushback?
No, no, I disagree. I think that you touched upon Melia, which to me is uh, symptomatic of his deficiencies because he is quite stubborn, and he does. I mean, I think with most people these days, it, they may not make a conscious effort of reading the criticism, but he's aware of what's being said, and it almost was to prove a point. He kept Melier for a lot longer, and again, this is it. It's in my opinion, having an ego is fine. There's no issue with that, and sometimes you need it in sport, top class sport. You need an ego, but you also have to be practical and rational. You have to understand that this is a keeper that is cost us many points, and it's obvious because he is somebody that it's not this season. He's done it for a number of seasons, uh, and your eyes told you that this guy was going to cost you points throughout the whole season. We had an opportunity to change, or he had an opportunity to change, and it would have been justified. It wasn't a case of it was knocking Melier's confidence.
Mm,
It was ultimately it's you as a football coach, you have to make the right decisions, and a player will understand if he's made some howlers regularly, he has to accept it. He was continued with for a lot longer, and in a sense, it sort of it to me it was a really poor reflection on Falk in terms of rotation as well. I mean, I agree. What you don't want to do is as soon as somebody has a bad game, you drop them. You don't do that, but you have a squad. The championship is relentless. It's 46 games, and there are sometimes games, 3 games within 6 or 7 days.
mm,
He never rotated, or he was very reluctant to rotate. And again, that to me is an indication of a poor coach. There was one time where he actually even sort of came out and said whether it was a joke or not, I'm not too sure. But I think the way he is, it was he the medical team talk about red zones. He said that also, sometimes I get told that the player is in the red zone, but sometimes I just ignore it. He actually said that. Now, I don't know whether it was just a flippant comment or whether it's true, whether he just sort of feels that, right, this is my best team, my best 11. I'm just going to go with them until I'm incapable of going with them. That's a huge criticism. I talked about his changes. He would always invariably make changes at 70 minutes. The
Mm.
best coaches, and Bielsa was one of the best we've ever had. He made changes in 25 minutes. I mean, there was a couple of times he took off Calvin Phillips. It just wasn't working. He took him off 25 minutes. And that's what I expect. I expect coaches to make, I mean, it was something that Slot did really well. And towards the end of the season, it perhaps wasn't as good, but he is exceptional at in-game management. This guy is awful at in-game management. And I think all of these attributes in the Premier League will be exposed. Here, he could get away with it because he just had the best team in the league. Ultimately, if you've got the best players, they will bail you out many times.
But listen, this podcast started from like a cheery start where a lot of euphoria. You're even as they say, drinking on set. But to what has become quite negative. I know you don't mean it like that, but look, I know you have your question marks over the manager, and that's fine. That's fair. I mean, I think he's got relegated twice. I think from the Premier
Yeah.
League. But look, he's got you up. Second time of asking last year, and you're right. There is something to be said about Leeds United Football Club bouncing back from a difficult moment, obviously last year in the Championship. I'm sure you can remember it was a horrible moment for yourself,
Mm.
but you're back in the big time. I want to ask you one final question. What are you most looking forward to next year? I mean, you're a realist. You are a realist on the most on the whole.
Mm.
What are you looking forward to the most when it comes to Premier League season 25-26?
Just to be pit our wits against the biggest teams in English football and just the experience because it is the biggest show, the best show in town. Leeds United Football Club, it should always be in the Premier League, because it is a huge club and it adds and enhances the Premier League. So really what I want to see is us compete. I'm expecting many defeats. There's going to be an occasional ass whooping, which I'm all, I understand that's going to happen. But what I expect is the recruitment to be on point, for us to at least give a good account of ourselves and to try and think, right, okay, we need to just be better than three teams. Now, the teams that come up, I expect us to be better than the two other teams that come up. So Burnley and whoever else it is, whether it's Sheffield United, whether it's Sunderland, I expect us to be better than them two. Right. What I then want is to identify a side towards the bottom. West Ham, I mean, I think Wolves perhaps will lose one of their key men. Maybe that might have an impact. And that's
Mm.
the way that I want to see Fark approach the season. That, look, you've got to be a realist. We're not going to beat Liverpool. We're not going to beat Arsenal. We're not going to beat even sort of sides like Spurs who've been struggling. But what I want to do is make sure we compete in those games. We don't just go there and sort of accept defeat, but certainly identify key games. So this is where squad management, right? What I want to do is make sure when we play West Ham, it's the strongest 11. When we play Crystal Palace, it's our strongest 11. So when you're playing teams that you're expecting are going to be there or thereabouts in terms of the bottom of the league, you make sure that those are your big games rather than Arsenal, rather than Liverpool. Now, I'm sure all the big players at Leeds will want to play at Anfield against Liverpool, but really, I want Fark to be smart. And that's where my concern is, that I don't think he's smart enough. He'll just keep the same players week in, week out. You've got to be clever in this league.
Yeah, I mean, look, fair enough. There's an article on BBC Sport, literally the main article about how Burnley and Leeds could fare next season. Obviously, both teams could finish on 100 points this year, and how they could fare. You made a really astute point there, Yub, about how, I mean, you're right. If it's not Sheffield United, you can tangibly, with your chest out, say that you're better than at least one team because you'll have fared much better in terms of points differential to any team that gets promoted from fourth, fifth, or sixth. So I think that's fair. That's a fair
Mm.
shout. Over 46 games to have comfortably more than a double-digit lead over any of those teams. Obviously, Burnley are your equal, I would say, and that's fair enough. They've got obviously Premier League pedigree, so that's fine. But you made a good point about how it's only going to require one or two teams, right, in terms of just being right kind of down there in the Premier League. And if you think about Wolves, where a great managerial change, I've got to give him credit, made them
Mm.
tougher to
Mm.
beat. But they've got mercurial talents like Cunha, who's been in the news recently. Although he signed a new contract, I never for once believed that that was somehow his loyalty pledge to Wolves. I think that was just a case of securing a good fee. So there's some talk about him being linked to United, some other big clubs as well. So he may well could
Mm,
move on, and that's going to leave a huge gap in terms
mm,
of their creativity at Wolves. Some talk about, I would say, even West Ham. You worry sometimes, is Bowen ever going to move on? If he does, he's so important for them as well. And West Ham are one of those kind of weird
mm,
clubs as well, always there at the bottom. Everton with Branthwaite at the back and what have you. If they were to lose a player of his ilk, Palace, they're always a bit of an iffy team. Talk
mm.
talk about the manager Glasner perhaps moving on. Eze, will he finally get a move? Some talk some of the big clubs might be in for him. So it only takes one or two clubs just to kind of be down there and for Leeds to have a really solid round of recruitment and start perhaps the season well for you to get off to a good start. But to your point, I mean, you're expecting quite a few thrashings, no doubt. That's just a lot, isn't it, for promoted clubs? But how do you see it, hand on heart? How do you see Leeds faring early doors, but how do you see them faring next season?
Uh, I suppose a lot will depend on recruitment, and a lot will depend on Daniel Farke. I mean, he's had two attempts in the Premier League, and both times they've been woeful failures. I mean, I don't know what Norwich fans will say, whether he had the squad or whether it's more a case of his management. I would sort of probably think it's more the latter. I just don't think he's smart enough as a coach. Uh, I'm genuinely worried. I think history tells me that it's going to be really, really tough. I'm hoping that the allure of Leeds United Football Club perhaps attracts some good players. Ideally, I want players with experience in the Premier League. It's no point getting an exception. To get a player for that price, 17 from Rennes, and for him to make an instant impact, you're not going to get that again. So I'm apprehensive. I am a realist because I think we've been in this league before and we've struggled. I mean, the first season under Bielsa was an exception, but again, it was COVID, so it was a very weird and atypical season. It certainly produced strange results. I mean, there was a couple of games where there was 7 goals, so it just showed that it was and we even beat Man City at the Etihad, but it was an empty stadium. So this is going to be different. This is a season where you've got a lot of. I mean, we talked about it. Oh, I certainly talked about that the standard in the Premier League is higher than it's ever been. So every team that comes up, it's not just sort of having to cope with playing the big teams. Every team there. I mean, you just went through some of the teams. West Ham, perennial strugglers, but they got Bowen. You've got Eze at Crystal Palace. So these teams that struggle, they've got some damn good players. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hoping that there is a strategy rather than just going in enjoying the experience. I hope there is a genuine strategy in terms of right. How do you keep up? My philosophy would be you've got to be a realist. You've got to target certain games, ensure that for those games, it's almost the cup final. So almost try and create a mini league at the bottom. Accept that you. I mean, some people might say it's a defeatist mentality, just going into a game with Arsenal and thinking you're going to lose, but that's the reality. That's the reason why teams that go up come down. So I hope that Leeds United try and do something, and there is a method in terms of trying to stay in the league. Now, if that fails, fine. But at least there was a method. I think at the moment when teams come up, I can't see any method. It just seems to be a case of right, we'll buy a load of players, we'll go into the European market because it's a little bit more cheaper, and it always takes time for these players to bed in. Sometimes they're not the right fit, and it just seems to be an awful, expensive waste of time. I hope for my sake because I don't want Leeds to be a yo-yo club.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, next year is going to bring about a lot of great memories, home and away, big games. And you're right, there'll be some tough moments, but there'll be some great moments, comeback wins, wins at the death, maybe some obviously losses at the death, and that's going to be incredibly difficult to say. You're right, you're going to lose more games than you win. But it also means that even kind of back-to-back wins in the Premier League means so much more,
Mm,
don't they,
yeah.
Ayub, in terms of where it's going to get you? I mean, look at the points total that would justify or would allow you to stay up this season in the Premier League, and you've just got to hope that there's three worse teams than yourselves. Of
Mm,
course, you're going to start off as favourites to go down. I think that's just par for the course. But I'm really pleased for you. Hand on heart. I mean, both of our teams are in the Premier League, and that's nice. So next year we'll start on 0 points. You'll start joint top of the Premier League. So
Yeah.
that's something. But I wish you well. I think next season should be a lot of great moments for us to discuss through as well. Any final comments, Ayub, with
I'm
yourself for
just
Leeds?
no, no. I'm just looking for. I mean, obviously, we do this podcast. It's primarily a Premier League podcast, and I'm just delighted that when we do it, it will be there's an active engagement because I'm talking about a team that is actually in the Premier League. So I'm
Yeah,
really excited, even though I've been a harbinger of doom.
yeah,
Uh,
you have.
and maybe that's the that's the reality. I mean, it's one of these where the Championship is damn good fun. It really is, and in sport, it's about winning. And at least in the Championship, that's what Leeds do. They win.
Yeah.
So
Uh, what I would say, Yubo, is what's another big win for you is that normally you get this 5 minute quarter at the start of the podcast, where I'm normally like counting the seconds, thinking as soon as that clock hits 5 minutes, right, you've got to move on to the next topic. And now you'll get a nice extended run when we talk about Leeds in the Premier League, no doubt. So I'm really pleased for it, really genuinely the case. I knew you were up, obviously, even before the last game, this final game, but obviously. And I didn't follow the Burnley Sheffield United game. Congratulations to Burnley as well. Obviously, Georgia must be incredibly pleased that Burnley are back up, back in the big time. Good old JJ Watt should be pleased as well. So, yeah, let's see how that fares. Interested to hear what the viewers say. You would love a comment and a like to the episode. We wanted to indulge you. You deserved it. You've been through a lot of difficult times, but keen to hear what the viewers think in terms of how Leeds will fare next season. No doubt there'll be a funny comment. I'm expecting one from your mate Richard Farrell. Let's see how that goes. I'm sure he'll have something funny to say about himself.
6 points guaranteed. That's it. That's a common theme. Even United fans are saying at least that's 6 points guaranteed. So,
Yeah, absolutely, and
uh,
there'll be a lot of fantasy football managers rejoicing as well, thinking that makes our weekend captain choices nice and easy. Whoever leads, whoever leads,
even I'll
whoever
be
leads.
doing that. I'll be making triple captains against Leeds.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the last time when, if you remember the games before Bielsa got fired, unfortunately, when you were shipping fours
Yeah.
and fives, you became quite the joke in terms of like the regular goal concessions. But yeah, happy for Leeds, happy for you, Ayub. Happy to hear what the viewers think. Leeds United back in the big time after a couple of years in the wilderness, quote unquote. So pleased, we'll be talking a lot more Leeds next year on the podcast and next season on the podcast as well. So yeah, until then, Ayub, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.